Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode 3 of Making Life More Better podcast. And I am Maurice Walker, your host, where we are empowering Black men to live a purpose-driven life through faith, healing, and sharing our stories. Today is a special episode for me because of two things. It is my grandmother's birthday on today. And this one is dedicated to her, because she played a major role in not just being my grandmother, but help filling that void of not having my father in my life. And if it wasn't for her and the role that she played in my life, I don't know where I would be now. So today is her birthday, and I'm recording this on September the 7th of 2025. So I want to say happy heavenly birthday to my grandmother. Her name is Miss Versie Mae Walker. And those that have never met my grandmother, they know my grandmother because I am always talking about my grandmother. And the past couple of days have been tough for me. And it has never been like this on her past birthdays or leading up to her birthday. My grandmother played a major part in my life, and me and my brother's life. In my first episode, I shared about growing up next to my grandparents, and they helped raise me and my two younger brothers with my mom. And my mom was dedicated to working and taking care of us as a single parent. And my grandparents played a major role in helping raising us. And through that, my grandmother and we developed this very special relationship. And I say it's special because you had to know my grandmother. Her way of showing you that she loved to care about you was she was fussing. She would fuss. My grandmother would fuss about things that I did, things that I didn't do. But what I learned was that was her way of showing how much she cared about you. I learned to, even if she was fussing at me about something, or even if she wasn't fussing about me, I still sat there and I listened. And because of that, I believe that allowed our relationship to be on a whole different level, to the point of when my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, just being there for her, helping, taking care of her. Just the relationship that we had. I was staying with her at times, just living with her. Because after my grandfather died, when I was in the 8th grade, my grandfather died. And it was just my grandmother. And we lived right next door to each other, and the role that she played in our lives. And because I got to the point to where I knew that her fussing, that was her. I would rather hear her fussing than not hearing her fussing. And what I wouldn't do to hear that now. And the more I got to know that side of her, the deeper our connection, the deeper our relationship with it got. And I can sit and tell you stories after stories after stories after stories about my grandmother. If social media was out then, during her time, she would be a viral grandmother because of her personality, some of the things that she says, how she responds to people. That was just her. And the past couple of days has been tough for me. I watched Jason Wilson. He was being interviewed by, it was two that I saw. He was being interviewed. And some of the things that he said in his interview on the podcast, it reminded me of my grandmother. And it reminded me in such a way that it made me realize that when my grandmother passed April 4th of 1996, I cried during that time, after that time. But the past couple of days, I realized I cried, but I never grieved my grandmother's passing. In the past couple of days, I find myself, I've been grieving, like losing her. It's 29 years later. And it's been tough. Like admitting how that hurt me because she passed away. And at times feeling when she passed away that she left me, she abandoned me. I felt that with my grandfather. And you're wondering, well, how does that tie into growing up without a father? Because she was there and it helped fill the role of my father not being there. Her presence, my grandparents' presence, my mother's presence, my uncles, different people helped to try to do that. It still was not my father being there, but those that stepped in and did what they did for me, I greatly appreciate them. My mom, my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncles, all of them that played a part in who I am now as a man, as a black man who grew up without a father. When my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, I had the opportunity, in fact, I went overseas to play basketball. I went to Dominican Republic. And the way that situation happened, I was back home out of college. I was working and I was living with my grandmother. And I came home from work one day and my mom said, some man called you. He was my agent. I never met him. She said, some man called you about you going to China. I was like, China? Who called about going to China? So I ended up calling, but it wasn't China. It was Dominican Republic. I said, okay. When do I have to leave? He said, in the morning. I got you a flight out of Savannah Airport, which is like an hour and a half from my hometown. And it was at 5 something in the morning. This was 6 o'clock at night when I found this out. So this is less than 12 hours that I had to get ready and leave. So I had to leave home, my grandmother's house, around 1 in the morning to get to Savannah in enough time to be able to get on the flight. But when I found that out, my grandmother was in her room. She was sitting on her bed, side of the bed, and she was reading the Bible. She would always read the Bible before she lay down. She was reading the Bible, and I came in the house, and she said, baby, that's you? I said, yes, ma'am. And I went in her room, and I told my grandmother that, and she knew basketball was my dream. I told my grandmother that I got the opportunity to go play basketball, and it's out of the country. And she said, when are you leaving? I said, I got to leave in a couple of hours. I got to leave here by 1 to go to Savannah. And that she was happy for me, but her initial body language, it was like I ripped her heart out. Because we were that close. That was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Telling her that. And she said, no, you always loved that ball, chasing that ball. And I want you to do that. That's what she was saying. But her body language and her demeanor, her energy was saying the complete opposite. And I ended up going, and while I was there, I talked to her on a regular basis. And it got to a point to where I just finally asked her one day after I would talk to her, I can tell, baby, they're not doing this or they're not doing that. Like I said, now my grandmother can fuss. And the average person wasn't going to sit there and listen to her fuss. Now, she didn't fuss all the time, she didn't fuss 50% of the time. But when she did, it made you think like she was fussing all the time. But it wasn't. And once you got used to that, or you knew who she was and how it was, all of my friends, they tell me, "Whoa, your grandmama, she don't play, does she?" She does not play, and she didn't. And I'll tell my friends, I say, "Hey, man, when we go in the house, let's do this, 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 and this. And then we're coming back out." And just some of the stories, how she would interact with a girlfriend, a childhood friend that we've been friends since childhood, and the relationship they had with each other. She would call to the house, "Hey, Miss Verse, don't be Miss Versing me. Maurice there? That's all you call here for?" They just had that type of relationship where they were, and I knew they loved each other. That was just a relationship that they had with each other, and just those times, those moments, that really meant a lot to me. I ended up coming back home because I asked her one day. I could tell in her voice the times that I was talking to her. I said, "Do you want me to come back home?" She said, "No, no, stay. I know you enjoy. That's what you want to do." And so she was wanting me to fulfill my dreams of playing basketball. So she said, "No." And eventually I did. I came back and moved back in with her. And I got a job working. And I don't regret that at all. I've had some people to ask me that. Like, "Didn't you want to play?" I said, "Yeah, I did." For a long time, I wouldn't even tell people that's why I came back home. But in the time that I had with her when I came back, I am so glad that I did come back. And the job that I had working, once I got back, I was staying with her. So she was happy again. Our relationship developed on even a stronger level. And it just, the things that I learned from her and through her it meant so much to me. And I didn't realize it then, what she was doing and how she was doing it. I don't even know if she realized it, but how it happened. And staying there with my grandmother, I got really, really close to her. And there were times as she got older, there were times I could be out this now when I used to drink. And she knew I used to drink. She said, I know you be drinking that. I know you be drinking that beer and all of that. Because when you come in here, yeah, you're always in the bathroom, using the bathroom. So she said she knew I was drinking because I was always using the bathroom. But those were during the times that I was. And I can be out somewhere and something would speak to my spirit, go by the house. I would go by the house to check on her to see how she was doing. And a few times when I was out, I'll tell my friend, "Hey man, I need to run by the house. And they knew when I'm running by, I'm going to check on my grandmother." And going by and checking on her, but also when I got home at night, I always went in her room to let her know I was in. She knew that I was coming in because she will hear me coming in, but I would always go in the room and let her know. I said, "Hey, I want to let you know I'm here." "Okay, baby." If she wasn't asleep, and she rarely wasn't asleep. She tried to act like she wasn't. She said, "Okay." But I always let her know that. But on a few times, when I got home, I found my grandmother under the car shed, what we call it, where we parked the car. And when I pulled up in the yard, when I was getting ready to walk in the house, I heard some moaning. And it was her, where she fell coming out the back door. And she was down there for a little bit. And I helped her get up, and I let my uncles know that lived next door down the street from her. Let my uncles know. That was one time I came home, walked in the kitchen, in the back door that was right there at the kitchen, and I could hear her, and I realized she fell in the kitchen. she fell on the floor. I said, "Grandmama, you okay?" And my friends would laugh at, I didn't say grandmama, it was grandmama. I said, "Grandmama, what happened?" She fell again. So this time it was in the kitchen. So I helped her up, called my uncles. They came up. They always came to check on her. I think maybe once or twice we ended up to have her to make sure she was good, taking her to the doctor, or having, I don't think EMS ever came to the house for any of those situations. But then one time I came in, went in her room to let her know that I was back and I didn't see her in the bed. Then I went to her bathroom, and her room had a bathroom in it and the door was closed. So I knocked on the door and nobody answered. Then I noticed the light was off in the bathroom. And they realized, where is she? The car was there, but I didn't find her. Went back in the room and I heard some moaning. And I realized that she somehow, between the wall and the bed, there was some space. She ended up falling in between the wall and the bed. So I called my uncle because I couldn't get her up. I moved the bed, but I don't know if you ever tried to lift someone where their weight, they can't even help get up by themselves. Their weight, what they call a dead weight. So I called my uncle. He came up, and she would always say that she was okay. Always say that she was okay. But during those times, and I thought back on it, I was always the person that found her whenever something like that happened. So I don't regret. Right now, today, I never regretted coming back, giving up basketball, coming back home. And while I was there working, I had already finished and got a degree in business. And my grandmother asked me, she said, "Well, why don't you ever thought about being a teacher?" I was like, "A teacher?" That was never a thought about me being a teacher. And I looked into it, and I ended up going back to school in 95, and I got a second degree in special education. I've been in special education now over 25 years as an educator. And that was because my grandmother knew me. She knew my heart. She knew I had a heart for kids. And I know she probably realized I had a heart for elderly people too. And I developed that through her. And while I was there, well, let me back up. My grandmother would have asked me to do some things like, "Reese, I need you to cut my toenails and my fingernails." I cut her toenails. I did her fingernails. I scratched her hair, washed her hair, scratch it, wash it, and then grease it. Some people say put oil on. We say grease with that ultra sheen grease that they had back then. So I would scratch her hair. She'd sit on the front porch. I scratch her hair. "Come on and wash my hair." I wash her hair. And when it dried, I greased her hair and clipping her fingernails, her toenails. And she said, "Now you better not cut my toenails to the quick." I was like, what is a quick? She said, "You will know it when I kick you off this porch." And that was just her way of how she was. And I mentioned earlier in this that in one of the podcasts, when Jason Wilson was talking about when his mother got sick, I think it was dementia, and how he had to cut her nails or file her fingernails. And he said that situation, if I'm remembering it correctly, that situation with his mom is when he felt like God taught him how to have a tender heart with people. And then the guy that was Lecrae, that's who it was. One of the podcasts was him and Lecrae. He was on Lecrae's podcast, and the other one was Mel Robbins. And the one with him and Lecrae, he mentioned about filing or cutting his mom's nails. And like, that's something he had to learn to do. And then Lecrae made the comment about, it made him think, man, am I that guy? Can I do that? Like cut my wife's nail, cut my whoever, my mom, my grandmother, do that and cut the nail. And when I was listening to it, it made me like wonder, like, why is that hard to do or think about? Because I was used to doing it. I think God created me with a nurturing heart. And being in my grandmother's life the way that I was, and the like how we were with each other, she helped cultivate what God gave me by having me to cut her toenails and her fingernails and washing her hair, scratching her hair, and I know that she enjoyed that, because when I would be scratching her hair, and when I tell her I'm finished, she said, "No, you ain't do this side." I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "I started over there." "No, you didn't." I said, "Okay." I knew that I did, but I realized that she wanted more of that. She wanted more of my time. And I did that. I gave her that. I don't regret any of that. And watching that podcast and those things that he was saying in the podcast, it made me think of some things about my grandmother. But this time when I thought about it, it led to some deep emotional things that I don't know. I realized I cried about losing my grandmother, but I never grieved it. I never went through that process of my feelings. And this goes back to also about my father not being involved in my life. I developed, and this, what I developed was a part of protecting me. I would suppress things. Suppressing things and making like it didn't happen, or suppressing it quickly so it wouldn't last long. And in my mind, it didn't happen. And that was something over time I mastered. It would happen even without me thinking about it happening, which I learned as I got older that wasn't a good thing, because I didn't deal with the issue at hand. I just suppressed it like it didn't happen. And the other night, a couple of nights ago, I was thinking, why is this like this? And I have to be honest with you. I haven't cried like that. I don't think I've ever cried like that. Like, I was literally grieving her, like she just passed away. And April 4th of this year was 29 years. Like, couldn't stop crying. Hurt. Like, why did she have to suffer with cancer? And watching the cancer, what it did to her body, the day that she died, I was in school, in college, working on my second degree. And my aunt called and said, "You need to come home. Your grandma want to see you." And I was like 2.5 hours away, so it took me like 3, because I had to get my stuff, get ready. And I went home. When I got there, went in the room. When I walked in the house, she said, "She waiting for you." And I went in the room where she was laying in the bed. And that's not my grandmother. She's never laying down in the bed during the middle of the day. I went in there, and I can hear her say, "Is that my baby?" And I walked in the room. I said, "Hey." And she held up her hand. And I grabbed her hand and sat on the bed beside her. I said, "You doing okay?" And she just looked at me And she said, and she took her hand, my hand, and put on her stomach. And I was like for me to rub her stomach. So I started rubbing her stomach. I said, your stomach hurt? She shook her head and said, yeah. All of my life, my grandmother, if she ever been in pain, she never said it. That was the first time my grandmother ever said that she was in pain. And I rubbed her stomach. She always loved for me to rub her head, her scalp. I rubbed her stomach for a while. Then I was rubbing her scalp and I was talking to her. And she was just looking at me. She was trying to talk, and the cancer had her mouth was parched, and try to get her not to talk, and just sitting there. And so I think I was there for like over an hour just sitting there talking to her, and I had to go get my aunt. She was flying into the airport in Columbia, like an hour and a half from my hometown. And I told her, I said, hey, I got to go run and pick up Aunt Caddy, and I'll be back. And she just looked at me like, then I noticed she started crying. I could see the tears. And she grabbed my hand and she squeezed my hand. I said, I'm coming back. I'm gonna run and pick Aunt Caddy up and I'm coming back. She squeezed my hand like, I don't know. And I knew I was coming back. And she finally said, okay, baby. But she had this look in her eyes like, I couldn't describe that look that she had until later. Because when we were coming back, this was like 3 hours later, when we were coming back and when we approached the street that I grew up on, we saw the hearse leaving. The hearse met us at the stop sign when we was turning. Everything just, my aunt, she yelled. I just pulled up at the house and just sat there in the car. And that look was her telling me bye. And my other aunt, my Aunt Nellie, she was the one at the house when I got there. Said, she in the room, she waiting on you. And my Aunt Nellie told me, I think she was waiting until you got here so she could see you. So on today, I want to celebrate my grandmother, Versie Mae Walker, for all that she did for me, my mom, my brothers. I miss our relationship. I miss laughing with her. I miss hearing her fuss. I was like, why are you fussing at me? It wasn't me. I didn't do it. And I still sat there and I listened to her. When I had a job, when my grandmother got her check every month, I had to take off from work to take her to pay her bills every month. I said, Grandma, I can't be taking off work. She said, oh, you gonna take me? And I told my supervisor, I said, hey man, first of the month, I'm gonna be out or I'm gonna be late coming to work. I can make it up however. And that was because I had to take my grandmother to pay her bills. And she never paid her bills late. She wanted to be ahead of time. That's on time for her. She wanted to be ahead of time. And all of those times in the grocery store, just shopping with her in there for hours, and don't try to rush her getting that stuff done. I miss that. I miss her. I miss being a grandmother's boy. her grandmother's boy. And I don't know why 29 years later, I feel like I'm grieving her now, finally grieving. I remember crying, but the way I've been crying the past couple of days is just like like it just happened. And I know God does things in his way. Why it's happening now, what he's trying to teach me, what I should learn from this. I appreciate those that took part in my life and helping me become the person that I am. And for you that's listening to this, if that makes any sense or whatever to you, I had to do this. I was wanting to do a podcast episode about her because the relationship that we have. And I understand when they say that the relationship a grandmother has with her grandkids is like something special. And I see how my mom is with her grands, my brother's kids. It's the same thing. Some of the things that they do, she wouldn't allow us to do. And that's that relationship that grandparents have with their grandkids, grandkids have with their grandparents. And I am so glad that I had that. I was blessed to know my grandmother, blessed to know my grandparents. She meant a lot to me. And what, I don't know if my mom even remembers this. After my grandmother died and I was going back to school, I remember my mom saying, well, I guess he won't be coming home that much now. Meaning, because my grandmother's no longer there, I probably wasn't going to be coming home as much. And I love my mom, always have loved my mom. I couldn't be here without her wouldn't want it any other way. Wouldn't want any other mom. And I thank her too but that hurt me. That bothered me that, not that she said that or that she felt that way, but I need to be there more for my mom too. Because my thing was, I wanted to play professional basketball to take care of my mother and my grandma. Because I watched them and what they did and what they sacrificed for me and my brothers. And I wanted to give that back to them. Since doing this podcast, and that's why I stayed away, didn't want to do it. The things I'm going, God is teaching me some things, showing me some things about myself. And I know it's going to help some other people. You always say your life is your life, but your life is not just about you. So I'm excited about how this podcast is going to bless people. And if it takes me sharing and being vulnerable and listening to God's instruction, it's not just about me. It's not. I'm doing things to try to make it better. I got some lights, microphone, because there's a lot of hurting people out there that don't have fathers in their life. And I want them to know that you are worthy. You deserve everything. And to acknowledge those that are in your life that's trying to help you. So I say again, thank you to my mom. Thank you to my uncles, Bishop Sanders, people in the neighborhood that was a part of the village, part of my village. Thank you so much for that. And for you that's going through, that's feeling unworthy, that's struggling like with the different emotions that you have, I'm praying for you. I'll be having some guests on shortly, maybe in the next episode, but definitely by the next 2 episodes, where some men will be sharing their experience of growing up without a father and how they're succeeding in life and making it happen despite that. Despite that. And what I'm learning through this process, healing is not easy. It's necessary if you want it, but it's not easy because it causes you to go to places that you may not even know exist within you. And I'm here for the journey. This podcast is not just about other men. It's about a continued healing for me. And God is not wasting any time with that. 29 years later, and I feel like I am just grieving my grandmother. So as I pray for you, I ask that you do the same thing for me. Again, this is Making Life Mobetta podcast, where we are empowering Black men who grow up without a father to live a godly, purpose-driven life through faith, healing, and sharing our stories. Take care, and I will see you on the next episode. God bless.